Hey guys, Try5 here, and I'm back with my part 2 of the basics of Anime Studio. Now, when we last left off, I showed you how to pretty much do the basic stuff with these tools, and I showed you a little bit about these layers. And as you can see, I started a new Anime Studio document. I was working with it a while ago, but what I last showed you was the image layer, which isn't anything too special or too complicated. It's just importing an image that you can later use to manipulate as an animation and as everything else. Next we have group layers. Group layers are, as the icon shows, a folder. Each time you import a new layer, any blank layer, you can then name it to whatever you want. In this case, what a group layer will do is, for example, if you have different vector layers, which vector layers, I didn't really mention it last time, but what you can do with vector layers is pretty much all I showed you how to do with the draw tools. What group layers do is group pretty much all the different kinds of layers you have. It doesn't have to just be vector layers. It can also be any other layers that we have here, like images, bones, switch, particles, all that stuff can go into a group layer. And this in turn, even though you have different vector layers, you can again manipulate it and do whatever you please with it. Then we have a bone layer. I don't want to get much into the bone layer because there isn't much I can explain right now, considering this is a topic for a different episode that I want to be covering, but this is mostly, and most importantly, for characters, not background elements, not objects, but mostly for characters if you want to move them and if you don't want it to be drawing frame by frame animation, which is very, very useful. So I won't really get into the bone layers right now. Next up we have switch layers. Switch layers are very basic layers. I believe debut versions don't have group layers, but they do have switch layers. Switch layers are sort of like group layers in that you can actually put different sorts of layers into that folder, except that here's the catch. Being called a switch folder, you have to choose which layer you want to be visible. They won't all be visible at the same time like with the group layer. When you have a group layer, all the layers that you put into that folder, into that group, will all be visible. In the switch layer, you have to choose which one will be visible. Like, for example, if on layer 1 I draw, let's say, any random shape like this, and on layer 3 I draw an oval, layer 4 is a triangle, circle, whatever, I guess. And, okay, let's make sure, like that. So now I've drawn something on each of the layers, but if you notice, if I go to my layer 3, which is my switch folder, it goes to the oval, which we all know is layer 3, and the rest are pretty much kind of grayed out. Switch layers can only show one layer at a time, one selected layer. Now, you can either right-click on the layer and then change it from here, or you can go to the special tools on this layer and select the active child. When you switch, there we go, it switches, hence the name, to that layer that you want to make visible. And you can actually do this in your animation. It won't just be one constant thing. Why do I have to do it twice? That's really odd, but okay. There we go, I guess. So that's pretty much the switched layer. You can edit different properties in all the layers, layer settings. There's just, like I said in the last part, there's so much to be said with the basic stuff in Anime Studio. I don't want to cover all the layer settings because there's just so much that we can cover. You can edit the name, hide an editing view, allow animated layer effects, which are here, make it visible, make it blurry, make it transparent, make it auto-shaded, outline it, don't render the layer, change the layer color so you can identify it quick, a lot faster. Options, rotate. I don't really use these that much, but it's nice to be able to experiment with all these. You can add shadows, an animated shadow, or a shading to the object, a 3D animated shadow, motion blur for if it's moving, there's a little blur behind the object. Bones, again, these are things I'm going to be mentioning in the Bones episode, so we'll get to that sometime soon. And the switch layer. In this case, again, I'll be talking about this switch setting in another episode where I cover how to lip sync and how to do mouths. Because right now, I don't really feel like I can explain what this does with just this normal switch layer, so won't dive into that. But every different layer type has different layer settings, so just, experiment with all that. Next up, we have a particle. Now, with particles are very special folders, which also, again, have different vector layers. So what you have to do there is put different types of layers, different shapes. I've never done one from scratch, but I'll show you what they pretty much do. Now, what you can do, I haven't really mentioned what all these can do. They have different settings: file, edit, draw, bone, animation, scripts, view, window, and help. With the help, you can, there are many software out there that actually, when you go to help, you don't really find much. Something that I love about Anime Studio is that if you actually go to tutorials, you'll find a lot of great help here. So that's something to really look forward to. So we want to go to scripts. We want to go to particle effects, and here are predetermined particles that we have. Now, what do these particles do? Let me show you. I usually like energy cloud. You can choose a color for whatever particle you want to use. I'll just choose something like blue, I guess. There we go. Okay. And there we go. Now, you may say, okay, there are different smoke effects and whatnot, so what? If you actually cycle through the animation, if you cycle through the frames, you'll notice that it moves. These particles, I don't really know how to explain it all that well, but they are different vector layers that's sparse, I guess you could say, that they behave differently depending on where they are in the animation, if you're moving them or not. They'll just be constantly moving and in a non-stop motion. And it's very useful for if you want to achieve an effect, mostly, or if you have plenty of objects on screen at the same time that are moving. And if we open it here, we'll notice that there are 6 different vector layers, one for each different blob that makes up the energy cloud. And they won't actually look like this in your animation. Now, here's where I'm going to show you another shortcut that you can also access by going to File and Preview. Control R. I just use Control R. Now, what Control R does is that it renders a preview of that specific frame that you're on. This is great for if you want to see what the final render of your animation is going to look like. Now, if you notice, this is what it's supposed to look like in my animation. This is what the energy cloud looks like. Notice that it doesn't look anything like this. That's various style effects. Before I go into style effects, I'm just going to show you the rest of what the vectors are, or I'll just explain it. Note. I've never actually used notes before, but I can understand that you can actually add a text, like, for example, this is an energy cloud, or something, I guess. And you can stick it up to here. I don't believe these will be rendered, but it's good to know, like, for example, if you're passing an animation on to a friend or a fellow animator, they can know what a certain thing in your project is. Let me just render it to see if... I don't think it renders the notes at all, but, never hurts to check. No, it doesn't. Okay, that's good. So yeah, notes will, I guess, never be rendered. I've never used them. But it's good to know that they're there. So if I ever work with a single animation with someone, then I can know to use them. Audio. I don't want to do this because it's the same thing as image. What you're doing is just importing an audio sample of like a song or a voice clip or whatever. Now, what's the catch with that, and why is it considered a layer in itself? Because you actually can translate the layer. Now, let's imagine that the note is actually my audio file. If I have it on the center, you'll be able to hear it in both the left and the right channels. If you translate it to this part of the camera of the scene, you'll only be able to hear the audio on the left channel. If you put it to the right, you'll only be able to hear it on the right channel, and so on and so forth. If you put it up here, it'll sound like the character or whatever's sounding is to the top right. If you put it down here, it'll sound like it's on the bottom left, and so on and so forth. It's really cool to get that sort of effect that a character isn't in the exact same scene, if not that the character is somewhere else in the scene. If the character is off screen. What else do we have? Patch. Patches are something else that I feel I can't really explain right now because it would require drawing various amounts of shapes, which should be all grouped up together. So I guess I'll leave that for when I start to show you how to create a character in itself. Just a heads up, patches are something I'm on and off with. It depends on what character you're drawing. Patches make it so that when you have a character or whatever, and you have overlapping seams or strokes, that they won't be visible instead of just hiding the strokes. The strokes will still be there, they won't be hidden, but the patch makes it so that they won't be visible. I don't know if that explains anything, but I'll explain it later on. And the text layer. Text layers are actually new to both Anime Studio 9 and 9.5. They're special layers that you can write whatever, oops, sorry. And you can choose whatever font you want, you can choose whatever styles you want, justification, scale, leading, kerning. You can also insert a balloon type if you have one. This is more for comic and stuff. The balloon settings, if you decide to put a balloon. The width of the stroke, you can try different styles with it, different fonts, like I said, and they pretty much just serve the point of, being a text. These will be visible, however, unlike the notes, because, even if I don't have the note selected, notice how you can't even see it, I think. Oh, no, you can. Never mind. So yeah, the text, layers pretty much only purpose is to, be there. You can make them translate them and all that. Is there anything else? I think not. Okay, that's it. So let's go back to our tools in cases for like the layer tools. Remember what I mentioned last part about setting an origin. Now, like I said, the origin is from pretty much where a layer starts or where the layer is centered. There are some parts of the origins that I don't really know how they work, so I wouldn't be able to thoroughly explain how to use it or how it really works. But let's say if I set the origin over here, everything would center around that. Notice how the transform layer now expands because it's not centered around here. So, for example, let's go back to our original origin. If I were to rotate this layer, it would rotate on the axis that is the origin. But if I set the origin somewhere else, notice how it rotates. It's not going to rotate the exact same way, and it's not going to move the exact same way either, nor will it actually scale the same way. So that's pretty much the point of origins. Depending on what axis the entire layer revolves around, I guess. And you can also set it yourself manually by here. You can reset it. You can flip the layer horizontally or vertically. So that's pretty cool too. You can follow a path. This is something I've never really used, and I don't exactly know how it works. But I know that this is something you have to do not on a single frame, but during the animation. So I can't really delve into this one since I'm not gonna lie, I don't really know how it works. Let's see. Rotate layer X and Y. It's kind of the same thing as rotating, but now you're doing it in more of a 3D effect. You can give it depth, horizontally, vertically, either way you want. That's pretty much it. Again, you can do it manually or you could reset it if you so choose to. Shear layer. These are very, oh god. It's very sensitive. They're very similar to that of the points, except that this time it does it with the entire layer. You don't have to select all the points, just do it with the entire layer. Shape selector is, layer selector, sorry, is something that's really, it's really useful for if you don't know what layer, for example, this part of the particle is. What you can do with the layer selector is, oh, I don't know which one this is, but I want to edit this. So you just click on that shape, and it'll take you to that layer, which in this case would be P6 of the energy cloud. So that's pretty cool. And notice how everything in the tools bar changes. But let's go back to just a simple layer. Insert text. We already have a text here, so I've never really tried out with that. Eyedropper, shortcut L, you can choose whatever color you're going to be needing in case you want to push a color or copy a color to your styles and then use it on a different shape. Self-explanatory, really. It's anything you'd see in a basic paint program, paint software. I think that's pretty much it in terms of tools. I don't really think that there's anything else. The camera. Camera, I believe this one is track camera, which is shortcut 4. You can change where, like, if you have more stuff here, if you want to pan the camera, you can do so by just dragging it. Self-explanatory. Like, again, you can do it position X, Y, and Z axis as well if you want depth. You can reset. You can show the path, which is something I don't really like doing. But for example, if you move a frame, you can know where everything's going. I don't like showing the path, so let's just reset and delete these points in the timeline. Camera, zoom camera. Again, self-explanatory. Zoom in or zoom out of the project. Zoom in and out of your animation window. Rotate camera. Again, self-explanatory. Just rotate how the camera's working. That's basically it. Pan or tilt camera, sorry. This is more of a 3D effect, if you can achieve it. I usually, when I use this tool, I can't really achieve an effect because of how 2D my objects are, so this could potentially be really useful as well if you can use it correctly. I've never been able to, but maybe you could find a use for it. Now we have our workspace. Our pan, like I showed you before, just pans on your workspace, not the camera. That's the difference between panning the workspace and panning the camera. Notice that it's not the same thing. We have our zoom, which I also explained. Rotate the workspace. Again, not the camera. The difference is here I'm rotating the workspace, here I'm rotating the camera. See how they're not different. Orbit. Why did I say that? Orbit is something... this is more if you're using 3D objects so that you can see how everything's going to be working in the background and the Z-axis and everything. I never use this because I only work with 2D so far, so there's not really much to say in regards to that. Now, like I said, I won't be explaining other because those are third-party things that Smith Micro has not made or probably even approved, so I won't be explaining those. Maybe I will be in another episode, I don't know. So, anyway, let's go back to, let me just get rid of this and go to frame 0 again. I haven't mentioned the styles window. We have our fill, which is the color that will be filling an object. Now, for example, if I have these selected and I go to my any one of these layers, I can change with the eyedropper. I can push the color, and there we go. Or what I could do also is select the shape, and notice how I don't have a stroke. I could put the stroke on. I could potentially change the color of the stroke, maybe to like a red, and notice how it is changing to red. I could change the fill to another color, maybe like if I wanted a green. You can do anything you want there. You can change the width of the stroke. You can have different brushes here. I don't usually do these. Wait. Oh, no. froze. Anyway, with the brushes, you're having different stroke styles. For example, here we go. You can have, this is like pretty much a preview of what your stroke is going to look like. Like, I could have it be stars. And if you render it, you'll notice that that object now has strokes in the shape of stars, which, since it's a particle, it takes a while. Oh, you can't really notice. That sucks. Let me make a. Oh, la, 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 la. Wait, why can't I notice these? Oh no. Oh, there we go. Okay, for example, this shape. Let's just use this shape as a reference. Let's make that a little bigger. Not that big, not that small. There we go. Select the shape, like I said, and you can change whatever color you want. Change the width of the stroke, make the stroke, I don't know, maybe yellow, I guess, or brown, whatever. And change the brush to snowflakes, I guess. Now, notice that it changed a little bit, but if we go to our render, then we can actually be able to see it a lot more. Yeah, you can also change the settings to make the stroke bigger, more noticeable, all that fun stuff. Effects. We have shaded, soft edge, halo, gradient, image texture, drop shadow, crayon, splotchy, and spots. I recommend you yourself actually going through all these and experimenting what you like best. Shaded basically makes an object, as its name says, shaded. You can change the angle, you can change the offset, you can change how much the blur of the shadow is. You can change what color the shadow is, like if I wanted a shadow like that. All shadow only. Maybe you don't want to have the actual color, but you just want to have the shadow. All that great stuff. Let's see what else we got. Soft edge. This is pretty much the preview of how your image is going to, not your image, your object is going to look like. You can change the blur radius to more if you want, have it barely noticeable. Like I said, you won't be able to notice it here sometimes. You will only be able to notice the effects until you've hit render. Notice how, now that I've hit render, you can actually see the difference. And, well, you sadly won't be able to see much of it. The halo tool, not, the video game, but this is what you can do. You can change the halo color. Let's probably make it a blue or something. Yeah, see, you can change it. Change the blur radius, inset radius, halo only. All that great stuff. Gradient. This is kind of problematic. I haven't exactly figured it out all that well, but you can change types of gradient to have as many colors as you want. You can change the colors of the gradient that you want to use. Allow transparency if you so please. You can have different types of gradients like linear, radial, reflected, and angles. And once you do that, you're actually going to have a different setting once you select the object. Oh, sorry, I did not apply it. Gradient. Let's just say that for now. And notice that we have this now. This is going to change where the gradient goes and how much gradient we have. It's really great, but it's kind of hard to use because sometimes it can actually mess up your objects. So I'd use it with caution and learn how to use it first. There are some instances in which I actually used it, but it made it look odd. So I ultimately decided to never really use gradients until I actually knew how to use them. So yeah. Oh, by the way, these ellipses right here are if you want to use the exact same effect, but just change the settings of said effect. So that's pretty much it. Here, image texture. You can use whatever texture you want. You can select whatever texture you want from your any predetermined image on your computer. I'll probably end up using the same image I used last time, or I don't know, maybe we could use this, for example. This is actually sort of a texture. You can have two different modes. Tile, which is pretty much just going to be different times, like if it runs out of one, it'll go to a tile and it'll have an infinite amount, or don't repeat and make it a solid image. And it has the exact same one as the gradient, because if you go, you can zoom into it, you can zoom out, see how it has the tiles there. You know, it's great. Drop shadow. You can have a drop shadow. This time it won't be applied to the object itself, but the object itself will have the shadow. And we have a crayon effect, which I actually think is pretty cool. I've never really worked around with it, but I do think it's pretty cool. I guess that or something. But you have to select the object, otherwise it won't work, mind you. Forgot to mention that. I've never, like I said, oh, there you go. Oh, wait, no, I have used that before. I remember now. But I really like this effect because it makes everything look a lot more simple, if you notice. And it's really fun to use all these different effects. Sometimes because using effects will make your animation render a lot slower, but believe me, in the long run, it's really worth it. Legacy effects, I don't really know what that is. I'll check into it probably sooner or later, but for now, I don't really know what it is. Splotchy, that gives, I want to say it's kind of like a cloth texture. That's kind of what I feel it is. Change the different settings. I don't know what they do, so I'm not really gonna lie. And then we had another one, which was spots, which is basically that. You can change the spot color to whatever you want. You know, I think this would actually really work for like a camouflage effect. So you can try that out. Those are the different styles we have. Swatches are different types of color palettes. Like, for example, we have the entire palette that's blue, brown and grays, dusk. I've never really used any of these. And now notice that this one's an image. You can do that yourself too. Like, for example, we have sky, day, sky at night. And you can also insert your own custom image. I've seen that this is very useful for when you're making your own character. Like, for example, if I want to make a different character that has probably an exact same palette as something I have predetermined, you can insert your custom image and select, by just clicking on your image, the color you want, and it'll, as you notice, it's automatically changing the color. Like, if I wanted it to be green, I just select the color of the couch, which is pretty much that color of green. And it's an assortment of things you can do, and you can reset the settings of everything. You can have a checker selection, which we just saw, which I like having, or you can have an outline for the shape, which I don't really like. And if you go to advanced, the style window cannot be docked in advanced mode. The screen resolution is too small. Would you like to open in a separate window? If you have to pretty much do that, and you can add different effects. You can add round caps, different styles, different thicknesses. I don't really use it. That's why I don't really have advanced clicked. But in the end, that's pretty much all the styles we have. Now, notice that when I unclicked advanced, it went back to being just a small window, but it's no longer integrated here. I haven't found a quick solution to that, but to do that, just go back to window over here. Deselect, or you can use control and that, and it'll be right back there. Now, you may have noticed, I'm not sure if you've noticed the things up here. This is a character wizard, which I'll go into much detail later when we're actually creating a character, and this is a library. A library in itself, the content library shows you different kinds of objects, characters, props, anything you can think of that can be integrated into Anime Studio with just the push of a button. You don't have to be dragging and dropping your elements into your Anime Studio. You can just select them from here, and I don't know why it's taking so long to actually open. But you'll see that you can select an assortment of characters. You can select an assortment of objects, of backgrounds, props, particles, a lot of different stuff. Okay, that's really odd. It's taking a while. There we go, library. The shortcut for the library is Control-Shift-L, if you're curious. That does have actually a shortcut. Now, you can notice that I have different characters here. My own characters, April, Des, Eugene, Lucky. Not my characters, but characters that I have as Anime Studio projects. You just select them, and then you can import them here. You can add to scene, add a folder. You can make them your favorites. You can, do all that. You can search for a specific prop or a specific object in your library. You have your characters, your props, your images, your sounds, your movies. You can import movies as well. Your effects, your scenes, your 3D objects, everything. But they all have to be in a specific folder on your computer, which I'll show you how to do sometime soon. Anyway, as for these in layers, you can duplicate a layer. Like if I want to have this one twice, but in 2 different spots, I could duplicate a layer, put it over here, and we have 2 of the same thing. We could delete the layer as I've been showing you. We could edit the layer settings, which I showed you a while ago, the general, the shadows, the motion. But to also do that, just double click on the layer. Or you could also have the layer compositions. I've never fiddled with this either, so I couldn't really tell you what that does. And as the last note for basic stuff, we have the timeline, where we see channels sequencer. Sequencer is something that you can do for... I use it mostly for audio and for audio and movies, to tell them like, oh, I want the audio to start here, for example, which makes it so that it's orbiting and now it's just here. You can notice you can make this bigger if you need to see more stuff. Sometimes you can use it to make it visible. In audio's case, you can move it around to like, I don't want it to start here, I want it to start over here and such. Same applies for movies. Motion graph. I don't really know what a motion graph does. I've never actually used it, so I wouldn't know. I don't use much of these settings. I don't know what the intervals do. I barely know what any of these interpolations does. But I usually go with either linear or smooth. And onion skins. Onion skins is something else I'll have to be telling you later when I'm actually showing you how to animate. I can't really tell you now because it would require me setting up an entire thing and showing you how they work. But if you're familiar with animation, you should probably know what onion skins are in related to animation. Relative keyframing, if you have it checked, then it'll make the frames relative to each other. Now, the different frames aren't different seconds. Like, for example, you notice that here it says 1 after 24 frames. Those 24 frames make up 1 second. 48 frames, 2 seconds, 72 frames, 3 seconds, 96 frames, 4 seconds, and so on and so forth. You can edit each individual frame. Like, for example, if I want to have this is a text layer over here on this frame, and at frame 36, I want it to be over here. And that's how we'll notice that, like, if we go through the frames, it'll start moving. Now, don't worry about this blue line here. That's just the path it's showing. That path I like seeing, which you can also edit up here, where it says show path. You can also, like I said, horizontal and vertical, different angles, which we can reset, scaling, all that stuff. And you'll notice all the stuff that appears here on the timeline. There's so many things you can do. You can mute your project if it's bothering you. You can display how much quality you want. If you want low quality, medium quality, high quality. Preview quality, which it really slows it down, I think. You can, show all these details if you want to have them, if you don't want to have them. Wireframes, if you're working with 3D objects, I think. You can avoid showing the points and all that stuff. That takes away the origin, so you're just going to see what it is, but you won't be able to actually manipulate it all that well. And finally, well, not finally, but another thing that's probably the last important thing I'll be showing you is these things. These are basically more for 3D animation. You have 4-way windows. You can rotate this one without rotating the red. Oh, they do all rotate. Why? I never really implement those, so I wouldn't be able to tell you. But yeah. Okay, that's odd. Anyway, they're supposed to serve different perspectives. I don't know why they all change if only one of them is supposed to, but I never use that either. I just go with the one way. These take you to different frames. The previous keyframe, the first keyframe or rewind, step back, which is just one frame, I think. You can start playing or stop, which you can do easily with the space bar. And these are the exact same things we just saw, but forward. You can change what frame you want to be on. Like, for example, I want to be on frame 9, and it takes me to frame 9 is the amount of frames you want in your animation. Now, the default is 240 frames, which I believe is 10 seconds, but you can ultimately make your animation much longer. The limit on debut is 3,000, but on Pro, it's unlimited. You can have as many frames of animation as you want. You can exceed anything. You can zoom in to see very specific frames. You can zoom out if you want to see more frames that are over here. You can scroll through your frames. I really don't think that there's much else I can explain other than these things, but, you know, most of what I show you here is stuff I either already show you or stuff I'm going to show you more along the road. But that's basically all Anime Studio is, in a very, 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 very big nutshell. I don't think I can simplify it much more for you guys. That's basically it for basics. If there's something I left out and you think that I should have explained, please tell me in the comment section below. I'll gladly do it for you. I'll gladly show you anything I probably left out if I know how to do it. And that's basically it. Next episode, we're going to get into something I think everyone wants to know. Most beginners want to know anyway, is how to make a character in Anime Studio. Now, if this episode took me 2 parts, that one's probably going to take me a lot longer. So, we'll get into very basic things first, and then I'll go into a lot more detailed things if you already know how to make a character, but you want to make a more detailed character. So, you know, if there are any suggestions for any tutorials you would like to see on Anime Studio, don't hesitate to ask me right in the comment section below, and I will get to it. I'll get to investigating and get to recording. So, without further ado, thank you for watching. Like, comment, and subscribe if you haven't already. This is your friend Chari5. Thank you so much for watching. Recommend to everyone else that you need, that you think could need something like this. And that's pretty much all I have to say. Thank you so much for watching. This is Chari5, signing off.